Is the BioCube stock light powerful enough to grow anemones and stony corals? To find out, I used a par meter to measure the tank and all of its light settings, and I'll show you in this video. My local Reef Club loans out this Apogee MQ510 par meter so that its members can measure the light levels of their tanks. I'll be measuring the light levels of my 5-year-old Coralife BioCube 32-gallon tank. This tank runs the stock lighting system, although I've supplemented the actinic range with 2 Reef bars from 21 LED USA. These won't be on during this test, but I will post a video of their light output. Since the lights are in the hood, you have to use the feeding door, which can lead to some strange angles, but we'll compensate as best we can. Now we'll start our first test. This first test will include all 3 channels of light. It's important that the BioCube have overlapping channels 1, 2, and 3 to have the maximum amount of photosynthetic active radiation on the corals for at least part of the day. As I perform the test, I'll leave the par meter there where you can see it and read off a few of the significant results. Photosynthetic active radiation measures the amount of light in the spectrum from about 400 to 700 nanometers. This is where plants and other photosynthetic animals can synthesize food. It's similar to, but not identical to, the range of visible light. Very low light corals can live as low as 20 par, whereas the most light-demanding SPS require as much as 400 par. I'm measuring at the top 1/3 of the tank, where we find a maximum par reading of 230. As you move to the sides of the tank, the par goes down as low as 130, close to the glass. The highest reading we obtained, just below the water surface, was about 450 par. That amount of light is enough to support SPS corals like montipora and some easy acropora. Some very demanding strains of acropora and clams might require a bit more par, but this is certainly plenty to operate an SPS tank. The power of the light diminishes fairly rapidly as we descend in the tank. As we move to the middle of the tank to get our next measurement, we capture readings of about 140 at the midpoint of the tank. This is still plenty of light to grow most stony corals like montipora or bird's nest. As we move laterally about midway down the tank, we see the par descend to about 100 and then about 75 as we get near the wall. Next we move to about 2/3 of the way down, where we find readings at the center of about 70. Moving to the sides, it doesn't decline very much, only reaching about 60 when we get near the wall. Next we move to the sandbed. This can be a bit tricky because of how we have to move in the feeding door and the size of the probe, but we did capture readings of about 55 in the center of the tank, going down only to about 50 as we get towards the wall. It's pretty clear that the BioCube's long LED panel creates a lot of light spread, and as you get farther down in the tank, there are more LEDs shining there. Overall, this test proves the stock lighting system is surprisingly strong. It offers enough light to operate a mixed reef from the sandbed, and at higher levels in the rockwork, enough light to have SPS corals. This runs counter to the prevailing wisdom, which is that the BioCube stock light needed to be replaced if you wanted to have a truly mixed reef. Our next test will turn off the bright whites and test only channels 2 and 3. These are often called the beauty lights and the actinic lights. Here's what the hood looks like with only channels 2 and 3 on. If you'd like to see more videos like this, including my other BioCube content, be sure to subscribe. With only 2 channels on, we see a dramatic drop in par. 1/3 of the way down, we find only 55 in the center. Halfway down the tank, that falls to about 40. Descending to about 2/3 of the way down, we observe values of 25. And at the sandbed, only 20. Lower in the tank, we don't see much change between the center and the wall. This is another indication that the light spread of the variety of LEDs is reaching more of the tank with fewer shadows. It's also clear that the bulk of the stock lighting system's power comes from channel 1. With only channels 2 and 3 on, we see power levels that are barely enough to support low light corals like leathers, some gorgonians, and mushrooms. So there might be some basis for the myth that the BioCube can't support more advanced corals. Perhaps those users or those testers weren't running channels simultaneously, or were not running channel 1 long enough. Our final test will be only channel 3. This is the actinic lighting spectrum, or sometimes called moonlights. Here's what channel 3 looks like in the hood. It's a single line of blue lights in the center. This makes me concerned that they will be shadowing on top of low PAR levels. Channel 3 showed some almost unbelievably low PAR levels. At the midpoint, 1/3 of the way down the tank, we get a PAR reading of 30. Halfway down, 20. 2/3 of the way down, we get a reading of 10. A reading of 10 is also observed on the sand bed, although I wasn't able to position the probe directly in the center. Almost unbelievably, I found a PAR reading of 4 in the corner along the sand bed. These are almost laughably low readings, below what I found even on this 5-gallon Petco beta tank. Corals still fluoresce and open up, although the PAR levels are so low it makes me wonder if this could actually be harmful, almost like leaving a person in twilight all the time. This is part of the reason I use the 21 LED USA actinic reef bars to provide additional PAR during this phase of the day. I'll link to a video about the reef bars in the description. Overall, these tests show that the BioCube stock lighting system does generate enough PAR to grow a successful mixed reef tank, including SPS corals, particularly if they're on the upper half of your rockscape. However, almost all of that PAR power comes from channel 1. Many reefers find that channels 2 and 3 are more visually appealing. If they don't use channel 1 or don't use it enough, they may not be providing enough light to grow the corals that they want to grow. I've made a video with a sample light schedule that you can mimic. I'll link to it in the description. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please consider a like and subscribe for the channel, and be on the lookout for additional videos about other lighting systems I use in my BioCube tanks.